Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a story that's as chilling as it is cautionary. It's not just a tale. It's a journey into the life of Daniel, a young man whose fascination with flames would ultimately lead him down a path of unimaginable consequence. This is the story of the boy who played with fire. Our story begins in a quiet, seemingly idyllic suburban town, the kind of place where everyone knows their neighbors. This was Daniel's world. From the outside, he was just another kid, a bit quiet, perhaps, but unremarkable. He had loving parents, did okay in school, and had a small circle of friends. But beneath this ordinary surface, a dangerous curiosity was taking root. It started small, as these things often do. A flickering candle in his room, the mesmerizing dance of a bonfire at a summer camp, the satisfying crackle of a twig catching fire. For Daniel, fire wasn't just an element. It was a source of power, a spectacle he could control. As a child, Daniel's interests seemed harmless. He spent hours in the backyard with a magnifying glass, focusing sunlight onto dry leaves, watching them smolder and then ignite. His parents, seeing this, chalked it up to a typical boyish fascination with science and nature. They bought him chemistry sets and books about volcanoes, hoping to channel his interest into a more productive, safer hobby. For a while, it seemed to work. Daniel excelled in his science classes, and his experiments became more sophisticated, albeit still confined to the safety of his desk. But the allure of the open flame, the raw, untamed energy of it, never truly left him. It was a secret thrill, a private world that was his and his alone. The transition from childhood curiosity to a teenage obsession was gradual, almost unnoticeable. As Daniel grew older, the pressures of adolescence began to mount. He felt misunderstood, isolated, and increasingly invisible in the social hierarchies of high school. The control he lacked in his social life, he found in fire. The small, contained experiments in the backyard escalated. He started setting small fires in secluded spots in an abandoned lot, a remote corner of a local park. Each successful blaze, each pillar of smoke that rose into the sky without consequence, gave him a rush, a sense of accomplishment and control that was intoxicating. It was his secret, his power. He wasn't just Daniel anymore. He was the one who could command the flames. He became meticulous, a student of his destructive craft. He learned about accelerants, wind patterns, and how different materials burned. He was careful, always choosing rainy days or damp locations to ensure his fires wouldn't spread. He told himself it was a controlled experiment, that he was just observing, not destroying. But the line between observation and obsession was blurring. His friends started to notice a change in him. He became more withdrawn, secretive, and his grades began to slip. When they asked what was wrong, he'd just shrug and say he was fine. How could he explain the thrill he felt, the sense of purpose he found in something so dangerous? The first real scare came on a dry autumn afternoon. Daniel chose a wooded area he thought was safe. But a sudden gust of wind, stronger than he anticipated, caught an ember and carried it into a patch of dry underbrush. Within seconds, a small, manageable fire turned into a hungry, roaring blaze, racing up the trunks of nearby trees. Panic seized him. This was beyond his control. The power he thought he wielded was now a terrifying wild force. He ran, his heart pounding in his chest, not looking back. He didn't call for help. He was too terrified of being caught. That night, he watched the news as fire trucks raced to the scene. The fire was eventually contained, but it had scorched several acres of woodland. The news report called the cause undetermined. For anyone else, this would have been a wake-up call, a terrifying lesson learned. For Daniel, the relief of not being caught overshadowed the guilt. He had gotten away with it. This narrow escape didn't deter him. It emboldened him. It made him feel invincible. His actions escalated. The small, secretive fires were no longer enough to satisfy the craving for that adrenaline rush. He needed a bigger stage, a greater risk. The target became an old, abandoned warehouse on the edge of town, a place kids dared each other to enter. For Daniel, it was the perfect canvas. One moonless night, armed with a can of gasoline, he broke in. The cavernous, empty space echoed with his footsteps. This time, there was no pretense of a controlled experiment. This was a deliberate act of destruction. He doused piles of old wooden pallets and debris. With a flick of his lighter, the warehouse erupted. The heat was immense, a physical force that pushed him back. He stood outside, hidden in the shadows, and watched his creation. The flames licked the night sky, casting an orange glow that could be seen for miles. It was terrifying, and to him it was beautiful. But what Daniel didn't know was that the warehouse wasn't entirely empty. A homeless man, seeking shelter from the cold, had been sleeping in a hidden corner. By the time firefighters arrived, the structure was a raging inferno, and it was too late. The next day, the news broke. The fire at the old warehouse was being investigated as arson, and a body had been discovered in the ruins. The world came crashing down on Daniel. The abstract thrill of the flame was now stained with the concrete reality of a life lost. The power he felt was replaced by a crushing, suffocating guilt. The invincible boy was now just a scared kid, haunted by the ghost of a man he never knew. The investigation was swift. Anonymous tips, combined with security footage from a nearby business that caught a shadowy figure fleeing the scene, quickly led the police to their prime suspect. When they knocked on Daniel's door, his carefully constructed world shattered. His parents watched in disbelief as their quiet, studious son was taken away in handcuffs. The trial was a blur of legal jargon, witness testimonies, and the heartbroken faces of his parents. Daniel, no longer the master of flames but a prisoner of his actions, confessed to everything. The story of the boy who played with fire had reached its tragic conclusion. He was sentenced to years in a juvenile detention center, his future extinguished as surely as the life he had taken. Daniel's story serves as a harrowing reminder that fascination can curdle into obsession, and that actions, especially those born from a place of isolation and a craving for control, have real-world consequences that can be devastating and irreversible. It's a call to look closer at those around us, to reach out to the quiet ones, and to understand that a cry for help can sometimes sound like the crackle of a flame. If you or someone you know is struggling with feelings of isolation or is engaging in risky behaviors, please talk to someone. There are resources available, and you don't have to face these challenges alone. Thank you so much for joining me for this story. It's a heavy one, I know, but an important one to tell. If this resonated with you, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into compelling stories. Stay safe and take care of each other.